Hey. Got to start it with that energy because listen, we're about to win this Super Bowl, people. Happy Tuesday, my favorite day of the week. Hello and welcome. I'm repping for my city today, y'all. So I hope everybody that's watching is repping too because we're going to kill this thing on Sunday. Welcome to Love Shouldn't Hurt. Happy Tuesday. I hope you guys are as pumped and as excited as I am. I'm always excited to be here on Tuesday because not only do I love doing this and sharing my time with all of you, but I love to interact with the audience. I love to interact with our guests. And I always love when my guests are people that I love. So we're going to have fun tonight, folks. Mira, she said, are you a Philadelphian? Jackie, get off because you know we from Philly, dog. Before we get into the show, I want to remind folks while we are here, that is the National Domestic Violence Hotline scrolling across the screen at 1-800-799-7233. Hello, look at that. I see everybody giving me love already. Lynette, Yamilet, Jacqueline, thank you for being here. You guys have the same energy I do. If you or someone you are dealing with is dealing with any form of domestic violence, make sure you tell them to call that number across the screen. A friend, a family member, a foe. It takes 2 seconds to give them the number because people, we are dealing with it. So give them the love. Obviously, tonight, I'm full of energy. I'm super excited. The last time we were here, we had a good time. You guys interacted and it was amazing. We did Express Yourself, but we did it a little differently. We had it the Survivor Edition. We made sure that those beautiful women who have gotten through this and now are forging pathways and are living amazing lives, who are going to be honored at this year's Love Gala, told us a little bit about their stories. So if you didn't check that out last week, go over to our Facebook or our YouTube page and check those women out. Tonight, folks, let me tell you. I'll say this. Let me give you guys a little rundown on her. So right now, she's sweating. She's going crazy in the background. I can see her cracking up in the green room. She is terrified. So I need everybody on this stream to give Miss Alma some love because she's stressed right now. She's never been on. And she's like, oh my God. I am super excited, y'all, because let me tell you, everybody's always like, why y'all resemble each other? No, folks. We are not related by blood, but we are family. Me and Alma share an uncle. My Uncle Eddie, I love to death, is her Uncle Eddie. He's married to her titi. And she's my titi because she's been in my life since before I was born. So we are family, and I'm super excited to bring Alma on. Tonight, we are talking to Alma Arce Rios. She is the owner and funeral director of Amadorez Funeral Home. So, you know, every week we try to bring you different things, different topics, and just different people within the community who are paving ways. Let me tell you, Alma took care of my uncle's funeral, of my grandmother's funeral, and it couldn't have been any more beautiful. They couldn't have looked any better. If you are looking for someone after you hear from her tonight, go look for Amadorez Funeral Home because I know it's scary, but it is inevitable, and she is amazing, and she leads with love. So super excited to have her. I hope I talked enough to make her anxiety go down a little bit. She's laughing in the background. We're going to bring out Alma Rios. You all right?
I'm okay. Hi, everyone. But you didn't tell them why I was a nervous wreck.
Okay, go ahead. Tell
it wasn't because of the show. Because like you said, we're family.
That's right.
But you made me do this whole login on, and if anybody knows me, they know I'm horrible at computers. So this whole Chrome stuff and downloading and passwords, I was like, oh my God.
But you made it and you here. Tranquila ahora.
Yeah, and if anybody's trying to call me, they're going to get the do not disturb.
That's right. She's busy, y'all. She's on a show. Déjala quieta.
I'm happy. I am so happy and honored to be here today. So and thank you for giving me a reason to be home early.
That's right. See, you work too hard.
Thank you.
So listen, we're family, so I know you, but a lot of people don't. I've known you before you started the funeral company. We share family, so I've seen you my entire life, family parties, everything. We've been with each other. Yep. But everybody watching doesn't know Alma. So tell us a little bit about your background. Tell us who Alma Arce is.
I am a mom.
That's right.
Of 4 awesome children. I am a grandma. I was born and raised on Lawrence and Susquehanna. Both of our grandmoms were on Lawrence Street. I was raised by my grandmom and grandpa. Mm-hmm. And most of my life, my elementary years, I have an awesome uncle, Uncle Wilson, who took me and my brother to Greenville, North Carolina, and helped raise us there. So my elementary years, I was there. And then it was time to give us back to our grandparents. And I studied at Northeast High, went to Jefferson University. I did a lot of MC and makeup, and that was my job. Besides taking care of my grandparents, I did that for a long time. And one day I had to go through the loss of my grandma. And when I sat with the funeral home, he pretty much just took the pen and paper, and okay, this is how much it's going to be. And I left that place, and I said, "That's it? You're not going to ask me anything about my grandma?"
Yeah.
And it was that experience that brought me to where I am today. I looked into mortuary schools. At first, I was like, "What do I have to do to be a funeral director, or what's even that thing called?"
Yeah.
And I looked up mortuary, and in Pennsylvania, there's just one school. In New Jersey, there's just one school, Mercer, which was 50 minutes away from me. I went to Mercer, and it wasn't easy. And just getting in the program, a lot of people were saying, this is not for a Latina woman. This isn't even a woman's career.
Field.
This is mostly men. There's just 3% of the people in the U.S. are embalmers, and I'm one of the 3%. I'm not only a funeral director, but I'm an embalmer, and I did it. I did it for my community. I did it for everyone that told me that I couldn't do it, and I set the goals. And my last goal was, I always dreamt to have a funeral home. And during COVID, a lot of things happened, and I guess like many of us, I was there where I said, if something happened to me, what would be that one thing that I would want to achieve? Mm-hmm. And it was get the funeral home. And so I stepped out on faith, right. and I did it. And it was hard, but here we are. Amadorez Funeral Home, and I've been serving the community for 12 years. Mm-hmm. I love it. And I always say that even if I won the lottery, I would probably still help families, because to me is one of the most important things that you get to do for that person's loved one, because it's the last thing you get to do.
Absolutely.
So that's who Alma is.
And it's I use the same words. It's a testament to, but it absolutely is a testament to who you are as a person. First of all, obviously, you don't see a lot of Latinas. You don't see a lot of women. You don't see people in that field. Mm-hmm. I've gone to, unfortunately, lots of funerals, and it's always, no offense, but it's always like a white male industry.
It is,
and that's what you see, and that's what I've always seen. And as we grew up, and you started with another company, and I saw you, I was always like, I can't believe that's what Alma does for a living, and you'd see it, and you go through it, and you're like, oh, okay, great, that's what she does. But then I better not start crying.
Don't cry.
But then I cry all the time. But when you buried my grandmother, first of all, my uncle, his funeral was beautiful. You did such a great job. He was amazing. But when you buried my grandmother, first of all, everyone who knows me knows that she's my heart and soul. I'm about to cry. So losing her was the most difficult part of my life, right? Mm-hmm. You go in, and first of all, I mean, obviously we're family, so you were loving, but just genuinely your love and your compassion and your support during such a difficult time was overwhelming, right? I went home and I'm like, I love her.
Oh, I love
and
you.
And then we got to see grandma, a few days prior because of my brother-in-law. And we had a private viewing, just the 5 of us, the 6 of us, and we went in there. I was so blown away. You go to funerals and you see, your loved one, and a lot of times they don't look like your loved ones anymore. They look so different. And when I walked up to my grandmother's casket, I was like, people say all the time, oh, they look like they're sleeping. Grandma genuinely looked like she was sleeping. Yeah. Her color still looked like she was alive. You made her look, I swear, like 20 years younger. You even gave her a little bit of lip gloss. Like you put earrings on her, and we all were like, oh my God, she looks so beautiful.
She got Alma-fied.
She did. But she looked beautiful. And I think that the most difficult thing during that time for any family is the fact that we're losing our loved one, you know?
Yeah.
I'm gonna cry through this whole show. We're losing someone that we love. To us, you're a woman of faith. You
Yeah.
love God, so you know that spiritually, their spirit is already gone, their soul's
Right.
already gone. But this is the last time that we're gonna physically see them. And to see a family member and unfortunately go to some of these funeral homes and they
Mm-hmm.
don't look like your loved one. It's difficult. It makes it really hard because you're
Yeah.
looking in that casket and you're like, that doesn't even look like her. That doesn't look like him. But the love that you put into these families, like my grandmother looked beautiful. She didn't look like she
Yeah.
passed away at all. She just looked like she was resting, and her color did not look the way you look. Sometimes you see them, they look gray. She looked like she had a tan. She had lip gloss. My grandma hasn't worn earrings in 40 years. She had little earrings on. Like, she looked amazing. So I think
Yeah.
that speaks of who you are as a person, how serious you take it.
Well,
Look, you have people on here that you have done for their families. I know that you dealt with Liz's family as well. So there's a lot of people on here who are giving you love because you worked with their families. Um,
I hope
so-
nobody thinks like I did that just because we're cousins. But no, people are watching. They're like, oh, it's because she's her family. No,
no, she,
we do it for everyone. I do it for
yeah,
everyone because, like you said, it is the last thing that we get to do for
yeah,
someone's loved one. And I share that all the time with my employees. It's
mm,
like when you get desensitized in this
mm,
field, that's when it's
mm,
time to go.
yeah,
When you forget that the person in the casket is somebody's loved one,
yeah,
that's when you have to check out.
yeah,
Because this is not a place where we get to do this and then you come the next day and say, well, I didn't like this. And we're like,
yeah,
okay, let's
yeah,
do it again.
yeah,
No, you only get one chance at this. And I take my job very personal. And I like to hear people say what you just said, that, you know what, even though you're going through the storm, even though you're hurting, you can find comfort in knowing that your loved one looked good.
mm,
And if that's the last memory that you have of your loved one,
mm,
like what you just said, the earrings, the little lip gloss, let that be a beautiful memory that
yeah,
brings a smile to your face. And that's what I want. That's what I strive for. I know what it is to go up to that casket.
mm,
I experienced it with my grandparents
yeah,
and was like, huh?
mhm,
She was Pentecostal.
yeah,
Uh, she had too much makeup on.
yeah,
So I know what it's like to go up there and not kind of like be comfortable and at ease knowing that that person, that's not how they live their life.
yeah,
But at the same token, I also know what it's like not to see your loved one.
mhm,
My sister, many of you guys know this, many don't, but my sister was a victim of domestic violence and she went missing.
mhm,
And me being a funeral director and my other sister, Mia, working with me, we
mhm,
never got a chance to see my sister in a casket.
yeah,
And so I always think that when I get to walk someone up to the casket to see their loved one, I always feel in my heart how lucky they are to experience that,
yeah,
you know, and how lucky I am to be able to give that gift to you.
mhm,
And at that moment, not all the funeral home, like all our services, they're like, oh, they look great, because it
yeah.
also depends
It
on
depends.
the condition of the
Yeah,
person. If
yeah,
they were in the hospital too long, just
yeah,
the condition. But we always want the families to come in and say, okay, too much makeup or the hair is the wrong way, and give us that opportunity to change it so that every family could experience what you experienced.
Ray just made a comment there.
What he
He
said.
says, Doña Toñita, my grandma, was my boo. She looked amazing just like she was in her life. Alma, you are amazing and your
Oh,
community appreciates you.
thank you. Thank you, Ray.
Absolutely. So you brought up your sister, and I don't want to touch that topic too much because I know that that's not something, we don't want to dive into that.
Hmm.
I don't want to, I don't want to bring up anything painful, but
Hmm.
you know, a part of my questions tonight were what makes this job like I know all the good sides, right? I know when people compliment you and they tell you how amazing you're doing, and you see families when they walk away from the casket and they're happy with your work. What because of, and I think you said a little bit about it just now, just knowing that you weren't able to bury Cheka, but what is the hardest part of this job? What is the, like, when you see victims of domestic violence, because this is what we do, what makes it difficult for you?
The children. The children. Too many times the kids go unnoticed during funerals. Too many times it's the adults that like run up to the caskets and they leave the kids behind, and the kids are looking at the adults in the room. They're afraid, they're crying, they're confused. They're like, what is going on? And to me, they're the ones that I worry about the most. I mean, everyone is important in a scene like that, but it's the kids, because what we adults fail to realize is that these kids haven't lived their life. And they don't know what it is to go through grief counseling. They don't know what it is to talk to somebody about their emotions. So they sit in a corner, and many of the kids cry. Many of them are just sitting there afraid. And I'm usually looking out for the kids in the room. Although I want to be there with the adults, I'm usually looking out for the kids, and I sit beside whatever kid I find, and I'm like, who is that in the casket? And then I usually share, my grandma died, or my sister died, whatever relation the person in the casket is to the kid. And I always say, they turned into an angel, and they're watching over me. Now you have an angel watching over you. So that kid can somewhat relate to what's going on, and somehow understand, what everything, like what's going on. Because it's really hard for us to lose a loved one and sit there and explain to the kid, mommy died, papi died. Like your people are so consumed with grief that they can't share it. They just can't. Even if they wanted to, they can't, because look at you. Even when you start talking about grandma years later, you start to cry. So they get just consumed with tears and emotions that they're just like, he'll get it, or she'll get it. But then you see later on, you see the child's grades being affected, or the behavior somehow. Kids grieve just like we grieve. And sometimes we have to just take the time to just make time for them and just explain it, or maybe even give them some grief therapy. So everyone is important, but to me, the kids are usually the ones that I pay more attention to, because that kid is going to that kid is going to become an adult. And what that kid saw at one point in his or her life could affect that person later.
Absolutely.
I had a case where this grandmom was everything to this young man. And he loved grandmom so much. She was everything to him. And years later, he took his life away, and his obituary was in the pocket, grandmom's obituary. So it just said so much, finding him like that. He just couldn't live without grandmom. If someone would have taken the time to say, hey, I'm here for you, or hey, you're not alone, perhaps that outcome would have been different. And so that's why, to me, the kids are very, very important.
So prior to, after all of the above, I don't like bringing up your sister.
You can. Okay. You can.
I'm always like a touchy subject, but so,
you can.
Hopefully, I'm not sure if everyone watching knows the story, and I won't dive into it as much, but your sister was taken from you guys, and unfortunately in a manner that is just unexplainable. Murder or any type of form of violence, or any way when someone passes away, obviously is difficult.
Domestic violence.
But when they're taken away in such a way where, like, you never get any answers, you never know what the hell happened. What has your thoughts towards domestic violence been? Like, how have they changed since Cheka's death? are they different now than what your thoughts about domestic violence were prior to her death? Are they the same? Are they worse? Like, what are your thoughts on domestic violence now that Chica's gone?
I was a victim of domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
Domestic violence is a topic that many people, especially in our culture, they don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, like many other topics, they don't want to talk about domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's an important, just as important as what are we going to eat later,
Mm-hmm.
that topic is just as important
Mm-hmm.
because it's something that exists. And when we try to sugarcoat or hide those things, then it puts us on a situation where you're meeting with people like me, the funeral director.
Mm-hmm.
I always looked at domestic violence as something that should be talked about. When I was a victim of domestic abuse, I never knew that nobody in my family was a victim of that. It wasn't until years later I found out through conversations that I had aunts that experienced the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sad because I remember one time saying, why didn't you tell me that you knew about that? Why didn't you ever say, is that a black eye? Like, I know what you're going through. Like, help me get out of this, you know? And it's disappointing that many of us have experienced that and we don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be damned if I don't tell my nieces, and I've had conversations with my nieces
Mm-hmm.
who are in high school, and I've told them, you know, you are not a punching bag. You are not to be hit. No one can hit you. And if someone does, you don't need to be ashamed of that. You don't
Mm-hmm.
need to be embarrassed. You speak up. And if you don't find anyone that will believe you, anyone that will listen, I will listen and I will believe you.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you go through life without having these conversations, then you end up in situations like our family was in. You know, yeah, my sister was in a situation that perhaps she didn't want to share it with anyone. And she goes out and she's taken to Atlantic City and she never comes back. You know, whether we got the opportunity to view her or not, the pain is still the same.
Yeah.
You lost a loved one in the hands of someone that supposedly loved that person.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we, the survivors, we dealt with a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
What should I have done?
Mm-hmm.
Should I have said something? Should I have seen something? And then we're left with that.
Mm-hmm.
So in turn, we have to come to grips with, are we going to continue to keep this a secret? Or are we going to rise up and say, you know what? This happened to me. And it's okay for you to be open and honest. And let's talk about this.
Yeah.
And it's also okay that if you see someone that you know being abused, for you to reach out to her, even if she doesn't tell you, and say, you know what? I know the signs because I've been there. Let me help you.
Yeah.
Because if not, you'll be that person in that funeral home with the guilt of, damn, I should have done something.
Yeah.
And then it's too late.
Yeah.
But it's an awful thing. But it's a real thing.
It is very real. And you've said something, and a lot of times I say on here that some of the conversations that we have end up being repetitive. But I am happy that they're repetitive because it goes to the fact that it happens so much and we're all thinking the same thing. It's just not something we talk about. And when I say that by you saying in our culture, because in we grew up as minorities, because it just goes to show you, like, I say it, they say it, you just said it. It's a shame that it's normalized so much within our culture. African American, Hispanics, we grow up in a family that it's like, lo que pasa en la casa se queda en la casa. You don't talk about it. It's normalized. I talked about grandma the last show. I always talk about her, but I talked about her the last show. God bless her. But when I first started doing what I was doing, it wasn't that she didn't support me. Grandmom supported everything I did. Like she used to be like, "Ay, I like your camisas." Like when I did the thing, and she would always tell me, "Oh, me enseñaron un retrato." And when I was in the newspaper, she was so proud of me. But when I was explaining to her, like at the beginning when I started, she was like, "Ay, pero tu abuelo me daba." Like it was just so normalized, you know? And it's such a culture shock when you talk about it and you say, "Hey, it's not normal. It's not. Let's not act like it's normal because it's not. It's something that's wrong, and we need to talk about it more so that people can see, oh yeah, I know what's going on. I know that he's hitting you. I know that you're going through this abuse."
Yeah.
So we're almost at the halfway part, and I don't want to talk and then get cut off because Ray will cut me off.
Don't do that, right?
Before we get to the 30 mark, I'm going to do it now. I'm going to remind folks who are watching why we are here. As per always, if you or someone you know is dealing with any form of domestic violence, reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. So we're talking to Alma Arce Rios. If you are just joining us, hello, Esther. I see you. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, those who are here and they're supporting tonight. She is the funeral director and owner of Amadorez Funeral Home. She is family to me, so I love her. We try to always bring people on, and people are probably like, this is so creepy. Why does she have a funeral director on? Like, you're talking about death. But unfortunately, another thing that we try to do at Love Shouldn't Hurt is make sure that we share resources. We bring on other companies where we talk about domestic violence, people who deal with domestic violence. But the inevitable truth about what we deal with is that some people don't get out. And unfortunately, there are deaths that do occur. And, you know, you see that. You know, you are a funeral director. You have seen people die and they're like coming to you because you have dealt with the loss of your sister, you know, and at the hands of domestic violence. How do you feel towards people now? Like, have you seen victims of domestic violence? Like, have you buried many of them?
Yes, I have. Before I answer your question, before I forget, the numbers are rising with victims of domestic abuse. And some families, you know, go to these funeral homes, which respectfully everyone can. But there's a source that the state of Pennsylvania has that a lot of people don't know. And I just want to, you know, take advantage of this.
That was one of my questions. Let me see if it's the same thing. Go ahead.
So it's the Victims Compensation Program. The state of Pennsylvania will give a family up to $6,500. I want to say up to, but $6,500 for reimbursement of any funerals, for any funeral services. So it could be just a victim of a crime.
Who are victims of a crime, right?
Of a crime, right. Okay. Whether you're shot, domestic violence. So, I mean, I think they give you up to 2 years to get that. So if there's anyone listening and their loved one was a victim of domestic violence, it's never too late to apply for that. And sometimes that helps. Like if you bury your loved one, you can always use that kind of like for the headstone at the cemetery. But yes.
I did read that. I'm glad you said that because I was going to bring it up.
Yeah, that's that help for victims of crime here in the state of Pennsylvania. And yes, I have dealt with many families of domestic violence. And domestic violence, like, I think some of us sometimes always think that it's a man with a woman. Yes. But in some cases, it's been the woman killing a man. Yeah. And if the people live together, that's domestic. I've had a case where it was the two cousins. And that was a very challenging service. They all are. I mean, we're already dealing with you that lost a loved one, and that's hurtful and painful, right? But think about now the domestic violence victim, where these families, both families usually have shared birthdays, anniversaries, just celebrations, holidays. Yeah. And just because one person did that to the person in the casket, it doesn't stop the family from loving either one of them. Yeah. Because there are sometimes people are like people understand that this person probably blacked out, or this person just wasn't in their right state of mind, or period. Like, okay, this person did that, but that's still my son. Yeah. I love him. That's still my daughter. She did that, but and now you're in a room, in a setting where, okay, I have to walk up to that casket, knowing that my loved one did that to that person in the casket. Yeah. How do I do that? Yes. I recently had a service about 2 weeks ago, and the brother came in. It was the brothers came into my office, and I could tell they were just consumed with grief and pain.
Mhm.
And they were just sick because they're like, we don't know if we should go up. And I said, well, do you love the person in the casket?
Mhm.
And he was like, yeah, but that was my brother that did that. I said,
Yeah.
if you don't show up, you still be in pain. And if you show up, you're in pain now. So you need to go up because it wasn't you that did that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people fail to realize in situations like that, it's not the family of the suspect that did that.
Mhm.
And they get treated so wrong. I
Yeah.
mean, there's families of the victim that have told me, you're taking sides. It's
Yeah.
not about taking sides. It's about being open-minded that they've shared a life together,
Yeah.
and it wasn't them that did that to the
Mhm.
person. It wasn't the family members. And
Mhm.
so sometimes it becomes a little difficult when not only now you have this pain that you're dealing with, this anger
Mhm.
because somebody took that person's life away from you, but now you have the anger towards a family that you were just sharing a holiday with.
Yeah.
And it could be a little overwhelming to us,
Mhm.
but I'm always mindful that, you know what, the pain is mutual, and I'm
Yeah.
always reminding everyone, you all love the person in the casket, and that
Yeah.
is who is about that person.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah,
Those were points that I didn't even think of, and I should have thought of them.
it's okay, you're not a funeral director.
Whenever, no, the thing is that everyone knows, my organization came about because a friend was killed by her husband.
Mhm.
And you said something that resonated with me. You said that sometimes they say, you're taking sides, and whatever the case may be. When her death occurred, it was very, very difficult, super difficult,
Mhm.
because we knew him first.
Mhm.
He was our friend first. So everybody who knew him and her were heartbroken, obviously. But it was so difficult
Yeah.
to be the person who knew both of them and was
Mhm.
like, hey, I'm mourning the loss of both.
Mhm.
Because how are you to say this happened to her, but you have to think of him a certain way? I mean, I totally understand
Yeah.
everyone's viewpoint. I respect everyone's
Mhm.
viewpoint. I respect the families. I respect people feeling that way, because a loved one was lost. She didn't
Mhm.
deserve it in any way. She was a beautiful person. It was just difficult at that time to watch how the families were together. And this is true. They had a life together. They were together for a really long time. When it occurred at the time, it was difficult to me. And I remember so clearly that I put up a post the day after she passed away. And I didn't take sides. I just said that, rest in peace to both. And I just kind of like gave my statement on how I felt about it. My heart was shattered. I was really sad about it because I couldn't believe that this happened and that it occurred. And people attacked me. Like,
Mm.
people were just like, he's a freaking monster. You're an idiot. You're so stupid.
Mm.
And I'm like, and I literally had to take the post down because people were
Wow.
cursing me out, telling
Wow.
me off, and just were like, how could you dare say anything, friendly towards him? He's a monster. And I'm like, I get it. Like, I wasn't even battling them back. I was like, I get it. I get what you're feeling.
Yeah.
But you don't know how difficult it is for me to be the
Yeah.
person that knows them both.
Yeah.
It's a shell shock for us because we're like, what the hell just happened? Like, how
Yeah.
did this happen? And you said something like they blacked out. They weren't the same person. And I genuinely, in my heart, feel like he wasn't the same person. And that's
Yeah.
just my opinion.
Yeah.
I in no way is saying that's anybody in her family's opinion or his family's opinion. In my own opinion, I feel like at that moment he wasn't himself.
Yeah.
I don't take away from what he did. What he did was tremendously wrong. And
Mhm.
Lord knows, even though he's gone, I would never forgive him for it.
Wow.
But it's hard to have people combat you during that time. So
Yeah.
it's crazy to hear that as a funeral director, you go through that too, when
Yep.
that's your job, to comfort everyone,
Yeah.
to be up there. And I can't imagine what it feels like for you to be that person who has to stand up there, and you can't take sides. You have to comfort both sides of the family. This is your job.
Yeah.
Has that happened more than once?
It has. And what people fail to realize is that grief has 5 stages. There are
Yeah.
5 stages of grief. There's the denial stage, the anger, the bargaining, the depression, and then the last one is acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some people that will stay in the anger stage forever. And it's just like you said, Chrissy, like it's hard for me to forgive him,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for what he did. It's probably very difficult for a lot of people to forgive a person that took somebody that we love away. But you know what? I've I've realized that in my own space and in my own time, I had to forgive who did that to my sister. Because when you don't forgive that person, you become a victim to that.
Yeah.
And I'm not a victim to what someone did to my loved one. And not only that, you know, we don't know the state of mind that someone is in. And just sometimes I mean, being who we are and believing in God, we just have to forgive them as He forgives us. And that is how you're able to grieve and get to the point of accepting that that person is no longer here with us. Because if not, you'll just hold on to that anger and that resentment. And then every time you think of her, then you think of him. And then those feelings of anger will creep
Come
up.
back.
And that's not a
Mm-hmm.
healthy way to grieve. You know, yes, that is a sad thing. But everyone needs to be mindful that when it comes down to that, it's both families. And not only that, it's not only the two families, if we're talking about spouses or boyfriends, but now you have these children.
Yeah.
And how are the families going to relate? And how are the children going to be raised? By not being part of the suspect's life because of whoever did this. They now you both don't have no parents. So it's like sometimes we just have to kind of just come to a point where we're just like, we got to look at what's best for us and what's best for the people around us.
Um, so I obviously I'm emotional today. Everything about this show is making me emotional
Oh,
today. But um, no, you know, I can't imagine how difficult it is for you to like do this job like on a constant basis. You know, you see these families and they, like I said, they have the opportunity to bury their loved one, and you never had that opportunity. Something that I try to do as well whenever we have these shows is allow you guys the platform, like people who come on here to give that, you know, to have that moment. Since Check Us Deaf, and I know that you guys really never had full answers. You know, I know they found and you know, and you got your answer of what, you know, that she was gone officially. But since then, like, how has, as a family, as a whole, you know, the way that she was taken, how have you all been able to move on from that, from her being taken, you know, from such, you know, a terrible form of violence?
some family members haven't been able to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's understandable,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because not everyone, like I said, grieved the same.
Yeah.
There was a time where for months I was angry.
Mm-hmm.
And for months I struggled with taking it out on God and saying, how could you do this to
Mm-hmm.
us? Here we are giving our very best to these families because I do give my very best. I mean, not every family is going to be 100% satisfied with
Yeah.
us, but we treat everybody's loved one as if they're our loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I dealt with that with really God, like, this is what I do. And I don't get the opportunity to view my sister and to lay her out. I don't get the opportunity to do what I have been doing for all these families.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very bitter and angry. And it wasn't until one pastor came to the funeral home, and I guess sometimes when you walk around with this pain and anger, it shows.
Yeah.
And he told me, he said, I just want you to know that what happened to you wasn't the cause of God, it was the cause of sin.
Mm-hmm.
And that did something to me.
Yeah.
And I accepted that. And I choose to turn it around. You know, I had the opportunity to say, you know what, I could be bitter and angry and not make everybody's loved one look good. Or I can, you know, I get to honor my sister. Anytime I get a young person like in their 20s, is a reminder to me of my sister.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just a little closer and more detailed on that loved one,
Mm-hmm.
because I just feel like certain families, you get to honor your own loved one
Mm-hmm.
by doing something special, because everyone is a little reminder of what we've been through in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good thing. It's a blessing
Yeah.
to be able to honor your loved one in doing something. Right now you're honoring your friend by doing
Mm-hmm.
this, and that's a good thing, because I always say that as long as we continue to say their names, they'll
Yeah.
never be gone.
Yeah.
As long as you continue to talk about your friend, she'll always be around. As long
Mm-hmm.
as you continue to talk about grandma, she'll always be around.
Mm-hmm.
It's when we stop mentioning
Yeah.
their names, or when we stop sharing their stories, that's when they're completely gone. And so I am very grateful and I'm honored to be in a position where, sometimes I meet with families and they're angry
Mm-hmm.
and they're just like, you don't know what it is, what I'm going through. And I've had families where I've had to say, oh, let me tell you that I do.
Yeah.
And let me tell you what I never got the opportunity to do, that
Yeah.
I'm going to do for you. And then they're able to see that, you know what? We're just like you. We
Mm-hmm.
feel the same pain, and let's try to move towards something healthier together. And that's what I'm here to do. And I do it every day, and I'm grateful to be doing it.
Wow. Well, Lord, you're amazing. And if anybody is watching and you have never looked up Amadorez Funeral Home, I suggest you all do. It sounds creepy, but it is the reality, and it's inevitable that at some point we're all going to go home, and we're not going to be here forever. So, I wanted to take this time to make sure that we highlight you, we highlight your funeral home, because like I said, during the most difficult times you do lead with love. And I
Yeah.
think that that's something that's important. Sometimes you go to doctors' offices, you go to hospitals, and like doctors are just like, they tell someone they have cancer, they tell them they're
Yeah.
just sick, and their bedside manner is so cold. And when you talk about it, they say, oh, well, they've done it for so many years, they've just become cold to it. And
Yeah.
you've been doing this for over 12 years and you're not cold to it. You
Yeah.
still lead with love. You still are there
Thank
and
you.
loving to everyone in that time. And the fact that you have a sister who dealt with domestic violence, and she was lost to it, it makes it even more like, wow, you could have
Yeah.
easily been like, I'm not doing this no more. I didn't have the
Hmm.
opportunity to do this for my sister. I'm not doing it for nobody else.
Right.
But you didn't skip a beat. And when
Right.
I say that, my uncle died in 2013. And during that time, when we had to go into your funeral home, it was literally around the same time
Exactly.
where where when this happened, finding out, about her and finding the shoe and stuff. And I didn't know how to face you, because it
Yeah.
was literally days before that it was in
Yeah.
the news, and I was like, she must be a wreck. Like, how are we going to talk to her? And you were calm, you were patient. My grandmother was like heartbroken. You were like giving my grandma love and and I just was like, yo, Alma's the shit. Like, she literally,
Yeah.
like, if people don't understand, like, what you do is not easy, but you do it so gracefully. You literally, it was on the news a week before that they had found your sister's shoe, and you still, only a week later, were with my grandmother in
Yeah.
that moment, and you were comforting her, and she was heartbroken. And it shows who you are, like, as a
Yeah.
person. And anytime someone says to me, like, oh, a family member has passed away, I'm like, call my cousin. She will
Yeah.
take care of her. She will look beautiful. She will look the same. You will be impressed, and you will be happy with your services. And I'm happy that we had
Thank
the
you.
opportunity to talk to you. I'm happy that we had the opportunity to also highlight your sister,
Yeah.
because I think that, like you saad, the more we talk about her, I didn't want to get too into it, because I
Mhm.
didn't know,
It's
like I
okay.
said, some people are still very emotional over it, and I understand it. It's
Yeah.
obviously, but I'm glad that we're able to talk about her, because I will say this. I was talking about her to a friend just literally yesterday and the day before. And I was saying, she had this grave loss in her family. And it's like, yeah, the more you talk about them, the more they're never gone.
Yeah.
I looked her up, and I didn't even realize that your sisters had did, an interview just 2 years
Recently.
ago, recently,
Yeah.
talking about it. And I was like, wow, this was years ago, but they just were talking about it. And I'm like, this is
Always.
a good thing, as long as
Yeah.
Cheka's name is always out there, and
Yeah.
people are always remembering her. her memory won't go, which is a good thing because at least, Janaya can know people are still talking about her mom and
Right.
they know that she's an amazing person.
Right.
So I love you and I appreciate you for being here.
Thank
Ray,
you.
let's put up those pictures of her funeral home so people know what they're gonna see when they get
Let
there.
me see. It better not be old pictures.
Well, regardless, it's pictures. There you go.
Those are the new ones.
Yes. So you see that? We got a Hispanic owned friggin' funeral home. Look at that. She got the Puerto Rican sign out there. She's letting people know that she is Hispanic. And I am super proud of her because Alma she's just a staple now in our community. And you've always done, you were working with Guckin and you were doing great. But now I'm so proud of you. I'm so
Thank you,
proud to
Mama.
have
Thank
been there.
you.
I was there when you cut that ribbon, and I've been there since, and I'm so proud of you because, like I said, you always lead with love. So what I want you to do now is pretty much just tell us where you're located, tell us how people can find you, tell us all the services you offer. Obviously, there's cremation and things like that, but just promote your business because, even though we talk about domestic violence, like I said, it is inevitable. And at some point, we want to know that people have someone to go to that will love on their loved ones.
Amadorez Funeral Home can be found on Instagram at Amadorez Funeral Home. We are located at 4292 Frankfurt Avenue. And we pretty much offer all types of funeral services, cremation, viewings, memorials. I'm just grateful to every family that have came into our place for assistance. And we're honored to help every family that comes in. Christina, you mentioned that death is inevitable. Mm-hmm. But I want to send a message to anybody that is listening, that may be a victim of domestic violence. Mm-hmm. You may go through life thinking that, you know what, he doesn't hit me as much, or it was just one time or 2 or 3 times and he's sorry and he loves me. Reach out and get some help because that one time or that next time could be the last time. And you don't want to leave that pain to your family members. You don't want to leave that pain to your children. There's been a lot of women that have been on this platform and have said, I was lucky to get out. I was lucky to walk away. Even I was one of them. But there have also been a lot of women that weren't so lucky. I remember a couple of years ago, I had a case and it was a domestic violence case and they put the person in the room. And when I went in the room to work on her, it was the girl that used to wash my hair. And I was heartbroken and she was tortured. And I lived with that for a couple months. Like, had she just told me, I went there every weekend. She washed my hair. She did a nice job. She always had a beautiful smile and never told anybody. Yeah. So, I just want to let anybody that's listening know that if you are that person, don't be embarrassed and don't be ashamed, because I would never want to meet your family and know that one day you were listening to this live. So have the courage and, the strength to have God lead you to the right person and reach out to Christina and, and find your way out because it's possible.
Absolutely. So before we go to our final thoughts, you have a bunch of comments here. And since you're on your phone, I don't think you can see them.
I can't.
So I'm going to let Ray scroll through them. Lisette Alvarez, she said, I will recommend Alma to anyone that needs the services.
I love her.
Jackie says, we are all so proud of you. Jennifer Rivera says, awesome. You got a lot of love from Lizette. She said, I love you,
thank
Alma.
You, Lizette. I buried her mom.
Yes. Yep. Esther Alvarez says, thank you, Alma. Dali Montes says, my prima is the best.
Yes. We're going to the gala.
That's right. There was a big comment there from Jennifer Rivera. Ray, let's put that up. It says, I felt like a burden when I left to my mother's house for 2 weeks. Luckily, she was okay with me staying with her because I spoke up. Maybe that's why people are usually silent, because they don't want to be viewed as a burden, and it's sad. Absolutely.
And I think people will want you to be the burden.
Yeah, they will.
Most people will want you to be the burden than to be the victim.
They would prefer that.
So, yeah, absolutely. So don't feel ashamed by that and just have the strength to just go.
Absolutely. Well, listen, la que tenía tenía ansiedad. You did amazing, boo. So at this time,
you.
I love you too. At this time, I'm going to make you feel even more uncomfortable because at the end of the show, we always have our closing thought, which means I go to the back, I leave you by yourself, and you kind of give a closing thought. I don't care what it is. You can talk about checkout. You can talk about your business. You can talk about what we talked about tonight, but it is your final thought. And that's how we close out our shows. They're going to send me to the back. You're going to stay here. Then I'll have my closing thought. Don't leave. Stay in
How
the
long
back.
is the closing thought?
Whatever you want it to be. It's my show. So whatever you want to do, you do. When you're done, you're going to go to the back. I'm going to give mine some shout outs, some love, and then we're going to come together so that we can do a dedication and close the show out together. Okay. So I'm going to leave you by yourself, babe.
I think I said everything I was supposed to say, but I just want to thank you for tuning in today. And I just truly want to thank all the families that have always trusted me with their loved ones. Christina, you're doing an amazing thing with this platform. And I'm truly, truly thankful for you for having me here today. Most and foremost, I just want to thank God. You know, God is amazing. God is great and God is good. I think we are all here because of God. And if there's anyone that is feeling alone or sad, depressed, if there's anyone that is a victim of homicide that's feeling those emotions, or anyone that had lost a loved one that is still dealing with the grief of anger or just frustrated that you have to live life without your loved one, you know, there is God, and God is always there. Just reach out to him. He will give you the comfort that you need. If you ever need someone to talk to and don't seem to find that person, you can always reach us at Amadorez Funeral Home. We're more than just a funeral home. We're there for people that like coffee, people that are on Frankfurt Avenue and want to stop by and use the bathroom. Our doors are open. If you ever need someone to listen, just call us. We are available 24 hours a day. Thank you. Thank you, Ray, for making this possible. God bless you guys.
I love you. That was amazing. See, you did great. Tan nerviosa para nada.
Ay, chica. Thank you, Mama.
I'm going to send you to the back, but don't leave. Don't log off.
Okay.
I'll be back. Thank you guys for watching. We try our best every week to bring you information that is not only just important, but just useful for all of you. As I stated several times throughout the show, unfortunately, death is inevitable and people don't like to talk about it, but it does happen, especially in the line of duty of work that I do. You know, unfortunately, we see it so much. So I hope that tonight you learned a lot. I hope that you were touched by things that Alma said. I know I did, because I'm a crybaby and I'm always emotional. But at the end of the day, I hope that you learned something important. If you absolutely are looking for someone to send your loved one to rest, and you are like, where do I go? Who do I call? Even if that moment has not come, but your loved one may be close to age, you know, doesn't have to be domestic violence, whatever the case may be. If you feel you have a loved one who needs the services, please contact Amadorez Funeral Home. When I say they lead with love, I couldn't have asked for anyone better, and not because she's family, but honestly, anyone better to have buried my grandmother. That was about the hardest day of my life, and she made it absolutely beautiful. So I'm a crybaby. But anyway, I'm going to move on to my announcements. Thankfully, all of you are still here and watching. Thank you so much for constantly giving us support. This is why we are here. Our tickets are live for our 3rd annual Love Gala. We are super excited. The ticket sales go up every day. I am so excited every year. This is just an event that touches my heart. I always call it a survivor's ball, because we have so many women who have come from victims to become survivors. They will be there and we will celebrate them. Please come on March 18th. The tickets are live on Eventbrite. We are absolutely waiting to see everyone in our community so that we can stand together, as always, against domestic violence. Our survivors, our pioneers, everyone who will be just loved on that day. Come join us for this event. It is our 3rd gala. We loved every year, and this year won't be any different than the best. Than the last. We hope that it's even better than the last. We'll have great performances, amazing people in your company, superb sponsors, and just everyone together in one room to just support those that we have here who are survivors, and also to remember those who are no longer with us. Thank you so much for being here. We will be here again next week. We will absolutely. Esther Alvarez says it's a lot of fun. Absolutely. We want to remember. Oh, he's going to make me cry again. We want to remember that our Love Gala and every single thing that we do, here goes the crybaby in me, is always in the memory of Linda Jeannie Rios. We hope that you will come and you will support us at the Love Gala, because remember that all of our events go directly to our victims who need services from us. So head over to Eventbrite, get your tickets before they're sold out, people, because then you're going to call me the day of and say, can I go? And I'm going to say, no, I don't got no more tickets. So head over. We're going to bring Alma back so we can say goodbye together.
Thank
My
you.
love, I appreciate you. I love you.
I love you. Thank you so much for being so awesome.
We will be here next week. We're going to close out the show in memory of your sister. We are going to close the show with
In
memory
memory of everyone that was a victim of domestic violence.
Absolutely. But we are dedicating tonight to Chica. So we're
Awesome.
closing out and we're saying goodnight.